Welcome back to DAM for Media and Entertainment at DAM Industry Week 2022. I'd like to hand back to your event chair, Graham Allen, the Managing Director at Deloitte Consulting. Graham, over to you.
Thanks, Tom. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody, to the main stage and to our next presentation with Christine Cadotte and Rebecca Efrat from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Christine is project lead for Metadata Optimization and has led many aspects of transformation for content management and preservation for CBC. And Rebecca is library coordinator for Semantics and Metadata. Is a rather interesting nexus of metadata and business value. Now, as we go here, don't forget to type your questions into the Q&A box anytime, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. So Rebecca and Christine, over to you.
Thanks, Graham. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We are very excited to talk to you today about our experience at the CBC with adopting and implementing our MAM system. Here's a quick look at the agenda we have. We'll quickly introduce ourselves a little further and our company, and then we'll move on to talk about the challenges and opportunities of migrating our legacy collections. We'll outline our current content and metadata needs and implementation experiences. And then we'll end with how we're working towards maximizing what our MAM can do for us in the future. So first, let's just talk a little bit about ourselves. Hi again, I'm Christine. I've been with the CBC for 19 years and have been involved in the MAM project for about a decade. Both as a subject matter expert for cataloging audio and video content and as the MAM coordinator, working on initiatives related to the migration of our music content, the cataloging of our Indigenous languages archive, and preparing the video migration phase of the project. Presently, my focus is on metadata optimization within the MAM, but as well with other content systems within the CBC.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad you could make it today. My name is Rebecca, and I've been with the CBC for just over a decade. As a video subject, I started with MAM as a video subject matter expert, and when we were finalizing our video metadata migration and defining and implementing our video auto capture workflows, but we'll get into a little bit more about that later. So that's a quick intro to who we are and our connection to the MAM. So let's get started. So who is the CBC? We are Canada's public broadcaster for both radio and television content. We have been around since 1936, beginning with radio, and have broadcasted television since 1952. As the public broadcaster, our focus is on Canadian content, and we are tasked with not only representing and preserving Canadian culture, but also reflecting the diversity that exists within that culture. So we have a responsibility to act within the parameters of the Canadian Broadcasting Act and to provide the CRTC, which is the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, with reports regarding our programming. So for example, as the public broadcaster, we air a greater percentage of Canadian content compared to the largest private sector broadcasters in the country, and we generate reports regarding our transmission of this Canadian content using our metadata. So as the public broadcaster, what do? We produce content for traditional television and radio platforms, as well as content for digital streaming services and online platforms. We have departments creating content in both official languages, which are English and French, and a segment of specialized content in many different Indigenous languages. We have bureaux across the country meeting local needs in addition to our national programming. And because we offer such a variety of content in many different formats to many different audiences on many different platforms, it's been a challenge for us to gather all of our content and its corresponding metadata into one media asset management system.
So about 10 years ago, we embarked on our journey to do just that, and we bought a MAM with the hopes of solving one major problem. How do we consolidate our legacy collection and capture our current content into one system that houses both the asset and the metadata? What we quickly realized that there was a diverse set of metadata needs that spanned across our collections and our departments. And it was a challenge to take our MAM out of the box and make it work to meet as many of those needs as we could. Some of the things we wanted to achieve with our MAM were to consolidate the legacy and current content into one system. This would allow us to keep multiple formats of content in a single system, and also allow us to house our digital formats while at the same time continue our efforts to digitize our physical legacy assets as well. We wanted to have our metadata and media in the same location, linked and accessible. So instead of searching metadata in one location, then taking a UID to another location to pull the media, we wanted to be able to search our MAM, see the media and metadata in the same location linked to each other. We also wanted to ensure that anyone working for the CBC could search our collections and access our content instead of hiding it away with gatekeepers filling requests for access. And finally, we wanted to be able to link our MAM to other content management systems to support the seamless flow of metadata for optimization and the flow of media for content creation. So with that list of lofty goals, we had to start somewhere. And we began by looking at our legacy collections. There we found a lot of challenges due to the fact that we had multiple content systems housing different types of assets and metadata. There were changing metadata standards over time relating to formatting and field usage. In many instances, we had standards that had not been documented, so we didn't know why certain things had been done a certain way. There was a diversity of standards and practices across assets. So for example, a field label for a program might be a program title in one database, or a program series title in another, or a show title in yet another. And a synopsis might be called a synopsis, or it might be called a description, and it could have varying levels of detail and description within it. Our controlled vocabularies as well have evolved over time, and a significant number of metadata records did not even use the controlled vocabularies or validated lists. So imposing validation in the MAM had the potential to be problematic, both for the technical integration of the taxonomy into the system, but also for the users to incorporate it into their new workflows. However, it remains something we wanted to do in order to maintain data integrity going forward. So we had the challenge of trying to migrate content from multiple systems with a wide variety of standards. And at the same time, we had the challenge of a cultural shift in the corporation where metadata was moving out of the purview of just a few groups to being a concern across many more teams and departments. The application, use, and governance of metadata had become a much more collaborative effort. And the loss of control over our metadata for us in the library teams can be scary, but it allowed us to open up new ways to help our content creators understand the value of metadata, and also helped us become better data stewards and to engage with different teams more directly about what they actually needed out of their metadata and their systems.
So some of the opportunities we identified with our legacy collection migration included a chance to generate new metadata standards to meet modern needs. And we did this with participation from stakeholders across multiple teams, including production teams, librarians, sales and marketing, and technical teams, just to name a few. A flexibility in the data model allowed us to be more agile and regarding our role of our metadata plays in these workflows. So we took the opportunity to engage our stakeholders in improving the taxonomy. We worked with the technical teams to integrate these taxonomies into various content systems and evaluated user behavior using a feedback loop approach to ensure that the taxonomy was inclusive and reflected the needs of diverse content creators. After figuring out how to incorporate our legacy collections into the MAM, we then needed to look to the present day and to the future. One of the most promising aspects of adopting a MAM was its ability to make certain manual workflows automatic. For many years, our metadata was used primarily for search and retrieval of our content, and our legacy archival systems were used to house our collections for dispersal to internal clients. Our production systems held content and metadata for the purpose of editing and distribution, and then the archival systems took over. As librarians, the bulk of our focus was on descriptive metadata, leaving the technical, administrative, and rights metadata to others. We are now looking holistically with an eye to making all the metadata available in one place in our MAM. Other metadata used for generating performance metrics, routing content, and content personalization has over the past number of years popped up in a variety of systems but in silos. And by looking to a collaborative work across teams and link to our MAM to other systems, we are endeavoring to be more effectively leverage our content as it flows throughout its life cycle. Changes in our workflow have informed our decisions for our MAM, but they're also made easier by the flexibility that a MAM provides. We are able to auto-capture television and radio content instead of having to manually set up records or import content into our archival systems. Also, instead of manually adding metadata to archival content, we are able to capture existing information in other content systems, such as transcripts from closed captioning files in our production systems. This allows our dedicated librarians to spend more time helping clients by adding a more value-added services to our department. Today, content is offered to audiences in a variety of configurations. Having our content flowing in and out of the MAM instead of having multiple systems allows content creators to more access and more flexibility.
So that was a quick walkthrough and survey of our preparations for MAM implementation. We had looked at the migration of our legacy content, established workflows for our future state, and we're ready to implement. So how did that go and where are we today? So our archival content has been fully migrated and digitized. As of 2017, we have been capturing audio through an automated process. We are also capturing metadata through different internal systems, and this is also an automated process. Some of the takeaways from our experience implementing radio content or audio content is that the digital content migrated faster than the physical collections, but both required manual assessment at times due to lack of information about the collections. We also discovered that by automating the intake of metadata and media, we were not losing any ability regarding searchability of that content in the MAM. Archival video metadata has also been migrated, and we are now capturing current metadata daily from our production system through a shadow archiving process. Legacy media on physical carriers is currently being digitized with the digital collections and live capture of media next on our MAM roadmap. A big takeaway from our experience with video so far is that our video stakeholders have much more complex needs, which has prompted us to be very intentional about our decisions at every stage and to engage stakeholders on a more regular basis. Given the complexity of metadata needs, we quickly recognized that the people in the various workflows associated with creating content needed just as much attention as technical considerations and asset migration. We realized that we had way more stakeholders for both the assets and the metadata than we previously thought, leading us to expand our stakeholder engagement activities. This was a defining moment for us because it ensured a higher level of adoption across more stakeholder groups. It also marked a much needed shift in our department's journey to be more collaborative and inclusive. In doing so, this journey requires us to be more engaged with technical teams, which has opened up more possibilities to optimize and leverage our content, both within the corporation and with our audiences. Stakeholders have played a crucial role in defining the broader metadata goals for the corporation. What's once started or was under the purview within our small department has now become a critical tool to both access and manage our assets and metadata corporate-wide. The stakeholders have also given us insight into future planning and have participated in governance and continuous improvement initiatives related to the MAM. This ensures that our department doesn't just fall into old habits of creating and maintaining content systems in a silo, but we have done just the opposite. The collaboration doesn't stop once you fill up your MAM. It's a process that continues to evolve to meet the growing needs of our content company.
So our MAM is good to go, and now what? Now that we are many years down the road on our MAM journey, let's take a quick recap of the MAM, what the MAM has enabled us to accomplish, as well as where it can lead to in the future. We have evaluated and adjusted our metadata standards to improve our user experience and to provide a more seamless migration of content and assets across all content management systems in the CBC. We have enhanced our taxonomies and controlled vocabularies to better reflect the diversity of content within collaboration. We have developed a more collaborative approach to ensure diverse needs are met to the benefit of all stakeholders. And we have automated processes that have in turn freed people to engage in a more meaningful work in a more meaningful way. We have increased our ability to capture more content and more metadata that enables the content creators to offer better stories to our audiences. So we bought a MAM, we did a lot of things with it, and now we're ready to start asking ourselves, what's next? Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to share our MAM adventures with you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now. In addition to that, if we don't get to all the questions, please feel free to reach out to Christine or I on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to discuss this anytime. So we will turn it over to any questions if there are.
Yeah, I think, we welcome any, any questions folks want to type those into the, the Q&A box. I have a couple maybe to get this going. You've just described quite an adventurous journey, quite an epic journey. How would you recommend people start a journey? Now that you have the benefit of looking back, over it, what would you recommend people, take as their first step or steps?
Christine, do you wanna start with that one?
Sure. Well, I think every corporation, company, team is different. But I think one of the first things that you really need to look at is, what do you really want your system to do for you? And who is actually going to be using the system? And I think that was, aside from all the technical things that we've done, I think that was one of the big things that I have learned a lot over the last 10 years, helping with the implementation of the MAM, is that no matter how wonderful it is, if you don't talk to all the people who will be affected early and often, it's not going to succeed. So I think that would be my first step, would be to just see who's going to be impacted and start engaging them, and to try and figure out what exactly you need and what they need, and be flexible about the fact that not everybody's needs are the same.
I would certainly echo that. Yeah.
No, go ahead, please, Rebecca.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that I certainly echo that. And I think identifying your stakeholders is crucial to the beginning of the process, because we can, work out of a silo very easily. And we think that we are at the forefront or the critical sort of juncture of the MAM, but there are lots of people that use it in very different ways. And to make it optimize and to make it work really, to the best that it can, and to live up to the potential of what we wanted it to do, we had to identify who those people were and then build those relationships with those people. And so like that's a really crucial element to this, is building relationships with all kinds of technical teams and content creators and everybody in the organization, outside of sort of those who manage the metadata and the assets, but to all those who use it.
And I think that ties to a slide that you had about, what your MAM was going to set out to do. I'm wondering, how much was that vision that you had based on listening to the business, maybe anticipating the business, seeing where the business was headed, versus a vision that you were bringing and you sort of leading and driving? I imagine a bit of both, but how did you feel your way through that?
Yeah, I think it started as something, it was an idea, and as the idea took, reins and started to become a reality, we were then forced to define what we wanted. And that was sort of a process that even continues to today, because what we want out of our MAM and what the MAM can do changes, and our needs change. And I think it's really crucial to be able to be flexible with what your plan is, but understand the limitations of the system, because a MAM is not a unicorn. It's not going to fix all of your problems. It can't be everything to everybody, but having a very firm understanding of what it can do and being able to communicate that with your stakeholders so that they can see the value that it brings was really crucial.
Yeah, actually, a MAM is not a unicorn. That's something that we should get on a T-shirt or a mug or a hat or something.
And I think, we fell prey to thinking that it would be, right? And then there's a whole lot of managing expectations that come with that. Because, in the face of being, sort of not promised, but thinking that it could deliver everything, we didn't necessarily think about the nuance that we would have to encounter. And that's the sort of biggest learning out of this, is that we encountered so much nuance that we didn't even know was there,
Mm.
much to a challenge, but also an opportunity, right? It allowed us to become more visible in our company because we had to collaborate with everybody to make it work to the best of its ability. And even
Actually,
still today, it doesn't do everything that we needed it to do, right? But
right.
So we've managed those expectations, but we've learned to communicate the value, and I think that that's a really important piece.
I think it's a very powerful aspect of your story here, the recognition of the nuance and then the proactive management of expectation back against that recognition. That's a balancing act that's quite tricky. Well done.
Thank you. It's not just us too, it's a whole team effort, right? There's a lot of people that are behind us that have done a lot of work over a decade of time, and we're still not at the end, right? Like there is no end.
There is no end. That's another.
Yeah, there is no end. And so I just wanted to recognize that it really is a collaborative approach, because you can't do this on your own. It's just impossible.
Yeah, there is no end might be another merchandise line, but I don't think that will be as popular. We have a couple of actually great questions that have come in from our audience. Metadata. How much did you create your own metadata and taxonomy models and standards versus how much were you leveraging, industry standards, Dublin Core, EBU, PBS? Tell us how you started that journey.
Sure. So from initially with our video and our audio assets, most metadata was entered manually. Most of our descriptive metadata was a complete manual process. And because of the implementation of our MAM, where we could leverage sources of metadata from other content systems, we were able to do that and focus less on the manual adoption. I'm going to give the taxonomy part over on to Christine.
Sure. I just also wanted to just build on that most of our metadata is based on internal systems and internal needs that we have developed over the years. Different validation lists and taxonomies that we have built internally. As Rebecca said, we did put metadata in manually we still do a little bit, put metadata in manually. And so that was all metadata that we have sort of evolved a schema over the years internally. We do try to look to industry standards when possible, but because we have a lot of unique needs, we tend to build our own lists. In terms of our taxonomy, up until the last number of years, we had an internal taxonomy. Now we have also, it's still an internal taxonomy, but it does have a basis. It is based on the AP taxonomy, and then we have enhanced it and created it a more custom set of terms. Which we use as our foundation, but we also have taken the opportunity with our Indigenous Languages Archive project, where we have a team cataloging audio content that is broadcast in different Indigenous languages. They have discovered, as they have been working through this content, that our standard taxonomy does not meet all of their needs. It doesn't have terms that they feel are valuable in terms of being able to retrieve content based on the needs of the community, because they are cataloging this content to be able to have it released back to the community in an accessible format. So we have worked with those teams to create a custom taxonomy that actually addresses what the content needs, as opposed to trying to shoehorn what they're working on into something that just doesn't work for them.
And I should add that, with the MAM, we are able to connect our taxonomy through API to our MAM system, which previously in our other systems we weren't able to do. So now we don't have users of the MAM going from one system to look up current concepts into another system and then into a text field. Like it's all integrated. And I think that has really allowed us the freedom to leverage our taxonomies and use them more widely, which in turn allows us to collate, our content better.
Absolutely.
And Christine, something you said a moment ago, I think segues nicely to another question that's come in about multiple languages. What's it like to manage metadata in a multi-language, multilingual, ecosystem?
It can be a challenge. Our MAM itself is really, it's available in French and English. Rebecca and I work for English services, and we have a host of counterparts working in French services who we work with on a very regular basis to ensure that any sort of differences in terms of the language are handled so that we can be as consistent and aligned as possible. And so we work in terms of governance committee with our French colleagues to make sure that when we can't have alignment, we understand why, we document why, and everybody is aware where there's a divergence. In terms of the Indigenous languages, that cataloging is all done in English, but it's the actual content that is broadcast in a different language. So we don't have to worry about having more than the 2 official languages in the MAM system itself. But we do try to be as inclusive as possible in terms of making sure place names have the different options, because place name is different in French and English, but it can also be different in different Indigenous languages as well. So we want to make sure that we are able to include as much as possible in terms of the taxonomy.
And that being said, I just want to add that that's sort of one of the limitations of our MAM, is that we can't really use diacritics in the MAM environment, and that's really challenging for Indigenous languages, where diacritics are a crucial element of that language, of those languages. So we've had to come up again, right? A MAM is not the unicorn; it's not an answer for everything. So, and that's one of the things that we learned, is that while we can function very well in English and French, but any languages that are that have used special characters, it's very challenging. So we end up making the decisions like to be doing it in English, but the content is in the various Indigenous languages that it's created in. And that's a challenge, right? And hopefully as we evolve and as time goes on, the different MAM tools will be able to incorporate diacritics and different language elements.
And I think that's, as we were saying, this is just sort of, even though we've been doing on this journey for 10 years, it's never ending, because that's something that we'll just keep asking for till hopefully we get it, and then we'll have another need, and we'll just keep improving as we go, hopefully.
Well, that diacritics point, I hope some of our vendors out there are listening to this, listening to how important that is. We have a bunch of great questions have come in that we're not going to get time for, including a couple around organization. You spoke about the team behind you, and like organization to support a project like this is a whole juicy topic that perhaps we'll do a panel on some other time. But maybe one final quick question in our last minute here, because I think this is a good one. What's the biggest surprise that you've encountered along this journey, good or not so good?
I think for me, it's that it wasn't this unicorn, to be honest. I was really expecting, sort of like when you see what a MAM can offer on paper, it's all great. But then when you go to put it into a working environment that has to connect with different systems that already exist, that becomes really challenging. And we noticed, like, for example, the taxonomy, when we change a concept in our taxonomy tool, it doesn't speak the same language to our MAM. And so now we have to compensate for that. And so I was surprised that it wasn't as seamless as I had hoped it to be.
I think for me, I was surprised at how much of an impact it's had on our organization, people-wise. I feel like it's really sort of slowly built over time, but it's made a change in how people work. It's made a very impactful change in how people look at their metadata, which I'm very happy about, since that's what I think about all the time. And I've even just noticed, like on a personal level, like it's changed the way I approach things and how I feel about the systems as opposed to the past when we had a very structured way of dealing with things. And it surprises me how much I like it, how much I like the uncertainty and the flexibility.
No, that's awesome. These are both great answers. And surely, you know, MAM is not a unicorn. That's going to be our phrase for the day. That's going to.
Good job, Rebecca.
No, thank you both.
No problem.
Christine and Rebecca, thank you. What a wonderful story. And sadly, we are out of time. We could definitely keep talking about this for a while longer if we had. But I think, you know, for our audience, there's just time now to go refresh your tea and join the Birds of a Feather session. Find yourself a virtual table in the lounge tab. It's just like being at the conference hotel, except for there's no line at the coffee bar. Or you can still visit the exhibition area, meet our sponsors, and learn their latest news. And we'll see you over in one or other of those spaces in just a minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.